Good evening.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 25th Fire Station Building Committee meeting. I have a little script I'm going to read real quick. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and Act relative to the extending certain COVID-19 measures, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. The order allows the Fire Station Building Committee to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations. All members of the Fire Station Building Committee are allowed to and encouraged to participate remotely. Members of the public who wish to live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the list on the agenda, link on the agenda. This meeting will not feature public comment. Each vote taken this evening will be conducted by roll call. I'm going to go ahead and confirm everyone's connectivity. To start with in the order I see him. So Captain Brillhart.
Present.
Mitch Cohen.
I'm here. Hello.
Guy Charpentier.
Present.
Dominic.
Here.
Janet.
Here.
John.
Here.
Mark.
Here.
Amy.
Here.
John. Here. John Rappa.
Here.
Here you go. Diana.
Here.
Todd. Tom.
Here. Sorry.
Deputy.
Here.
There we go.
And I'm also here, and I call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes from the October 17th public input session. May I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
Do I have a second?
No.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, roll call vote. Dan? Oh,
Aye.
Sorry.
You're fine. Yeah, he does.
Does he? Okay.
Mitch.
Mitch,
Aye.
Scott,
No. Go to John.
John,
Aye.
Diana,
Aye.
and Tom,
Aye.
And I'm an aye as
Aye.
well.
and the chief is an aye. So motion carries. We're going to change the agenda a little bit tonight, the order. Everybody's got meetings to go to. So we're going to address the milestone schedule discussion, please.
Thank you, Don. So since the last meeting, I spent some time reviewing the milestone schedule, and some concerns came to me as it's currently drafted. I think it's a very compressed schedule, and this was done so the committee could be able to present the project at the annual town meeting in April. So I took these concerns and I discussed them with our owner's project manager. I discussed them with HKT, Scott Charpentier, Sean Thompson, and Deputy Espesi. And I believe that pushing through with the timeline that is currently laid out, the final project that we produce will be not the quality that the town deserves. The others I met with came to the same conclusion. So therefore, I propose we adjust the time with a target date for a special town meeting in September of 2024. And this will do several things for us. First of all, it's going to provide a cleaner timeline for a meeting with the town land use boards, the design review committee, the planning board, the ZBA. Right now, it's very compressed. It could be very difficult to get the meetings in we want to. It's going to allow the committee to go to the September meeting with a much better plan, a much more finished plan, and most importantly, in my opinion, more accurate cost estimates. So I think that's great. It'll allow for the bidding of the project in fall of 2024, which is already when it was scheduled to be bid. So we're not changing the bidding timeline. The bidding timeline stays the same. And finally, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it allows the ballot initiative, ballot vote to occur in conjunction with the United States general election on November 5th, the presidential election. So the turnout will be very big. I did call the town clerk to confirm that that was legal. He then said, I'll have to call you back, chief. He looked into it, called me back and said it is legal. So we're all set with that. So I know I'm springing this on you guys, but it's something that's been bugging me. And I just said, I don't want to give a project to the town that it's not to what they deserve. I really think we need to give them something that we all work hard on and give them a good project with a good solid cost estimate. And it's not really going to affect a whole lot. So that's my pitch. Go ahead.
Scott, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to reiterate a little bit of what Chief Parenti outlined. Two of the concerns, one, obviously, the further down the design path we are when we go to town meeting, the more accurate and confident we are in the number. Both the number that goes before town meeting, as well as the number that we get when we bid. We can go to town meeting with the number early in the design phase, but bidding environments change, material costs change, supply chain issues change. We're in a very dynamic world right now. I'd like to be as close between estimate, approval, and award, those three critical components as possible. The other piece to the schedule that we deem to be clearly needed in the last public input session was public input, and allowing adequate time for the design review board, the planning board, and the zoning board of appeals to engage the public, have adequate comment and response, and not have those boards or committees or the residents feel as if we're pushing it through to meet a deadline that in all reality is not necessary, considering the design schedule is staying the same. We're just shifting a milestone from early in the design to later. Everybody came to the same conclusion when we discussed it, and I think it's what's best for the community. So I just echoing pretty much what Chief said.
Madam Chair. So I second both the Chief's and Scott's comments, because the boards have not been especially efficient in this town of late. And I think giving them more time to absorb a complex building design would be more helpful for us having a successful town meeting vote. So I'm certainly in favor of those. A more lenient schedule.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mitch?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree completely. This is an excellent option. The project can't go forward until both town meeting and the ballot approve the project. So, aiming for a September or even October town meeting makes a lot of sense. It gives us some flexibility, the opportunity to take the input and to include the input in the process. Won't feel rushed at the April town meeting. That was always going to be a very, very tight schedule. And I agree, since we can't go out to bid until the bid specs are complete, the bid documents are complete anyway. This makes a lot of sense. There's a small added cost to the town for holding a special town meeting, well justified for a project of this size and scope. There would be a cost associated with a special election if needed, but lining it up with a presidential election, boom, goes away. I know Andy will have to do probably a little bit of extra work, and we'll probably have to set that ballot question a little bit earlier than we would have if it was just going on to the annual election. But those are things I trust Andy will be able to give us the direction to handle that. So this is good.
Thank you. Anybody else? John?
I concur. I think getting it right is more important than, rushing it. So I concur with that. I would like to add that I think it's important that as we tee this up to the public and even to the boards and committees, explaining why we need a new fire station is important. We're all kind of close to this, but I think, a histogram in terms of, where we came from the 1970s, where the town was, how the town and the department have evolved over time. I think that's important in a few slides as we tee this up, because people say, well, what do you need another firehouse for? Just fix the roof and just blow out the side and be done with it. I think it's important to do that.
Okay, thank you. Diana?
I also agree with all that's been said. I think there's a lot of rationale behind that. I was just curious. So is the final estimate, which will provide the value for the town meeting vote, is that based on 100% construction documents?
Janet?
I think it'll be pretty close, Diana. We had planned on an early September bid anyhow, so we were focused on that date. Now we may shift it 2 or 3 weeks. We have to work with Colliers and John and Scott to fine tune the schedule, but that was originally our plan anyhow. So I would say it's, it's probably not 100, there is no 100%, but maybe 90, 95%, that's when we get it in. So we'd have a little bit of time to make adjustments if we needed to.
So the estimate would be 90%. And then
Yeah,
you
I
have
think so.
a bit before the
maybe
bid
even
goes
100,
in.
but yeah, really far at the end. Yep. So
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm scared because I never do this and have everyone agree with me, so I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Dan,
Oh,
You spoke too soon, Chief.
yeah, my captain will disagree with me. Go ahead, Cap.
You spoke a little too soon. I would be lying if I not a little disappointed not to go to the April spring town meeting and start the process. Obviously, we've been meeting on this thing since 2017, not this group, but the group overall. So I'll just throw it out there. But I agree, we want to make sure we get it right, and we want to make sure everybody's on board. So I'm okay with it.
Thank you, Dan.
thank you. Anyone else? Okay,
I don't think it needs a motion or anything because it's just, we just need HKT and Colliers to update the timeline, the milestone timeline.
okay.
So, Madam Chair, if Sean and I have to sign out, we have a meeting coming up, so in a live one, so we'll be signing out now, okay?
All right, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That brings us to mechanical engineer's presentation.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to advance the slides as Dom from GGD presents. So can you tell me that when you see the screen?
We can see this. There it is. Yep, you're up and
Okay.
your PowerPoint's running.
Okay, great. So obviously we have the schedule, we had to change the schedule, but we're going to be talking about the HVAC options. There'll be initial discussion, and then we'll show you some concept development. We've already talked about the schedule. We'll talk a little bit about next steps, but this is will be the really first introduction to how we're approaching the concept development after the HVAC, which is critical. So there you go, Dom. If you'd introduce yourself for those people who don't know you. So.
Hi, everyone. Dominic Pinello, Principal HVAC Engineer at GGD Consulting Engineers in Dartmouth. Glad to be here. Look forward to presenting the HVAC options and working with you all on the project. So with that said, go to the next slide. This is just kind of an agenda. Want to go over the goal of why we look at the life cycle economic analysis, the methods we use to do that, some of the options that we're proposing, but we're certainly open ears if anyone's got any other suggestions. These are some of the ones that we've designed on past projects. Also want to talk about the recent Massachusetts code update and the executive order 594 that kind of prompted that change. There's a lot of exciting utility company incentives and potential federal tax credits that might have an impact on the decision-making process. And certainly, if there's any questions or discussions, that would be great. Next slide. So the goal of the life cycle analysis is really to factor in the different cost factors of an HVAC system. There's your operating costs, which we determine or estimate from energy modeling. So we use the proposed building model from HKT and its configuration, enter that into computer program, utilize the building occupancy usage, the different system operating characteristics, and we get an energy simulation that's going to inform our operating costs for all the different HVAC options we study. We also look at the installation costs and the maintenance and any maintenance / replacement costs. So it's really factoring in those three cost factors: operating, installation, and maintenance / replacement costs over What we use is typically a 50-year study period. And in general, the system option that has the lowest overall operation, life cycle cost is generally the one that is recommended. Next slide. So in order to determine the systems, we've got to make sure first off that they're code compliant systems. We can't, propose a system that will not comply with the code. And for the Northborough community, it's the Massachusetts stretch code. So the stretch code doesn't prohibit gas heating, but it really kind of penalizes it and incentivizes electrified heating systems. This is also the case with the utility companies. There will be no more incentives for any gas heating systems, even if they're high efficiency gas heating. There will be no more incentives for gas heating. So Executive Order 594 really prompted the change in codes, and that's leading by example for public municipalities, try to decarbonize the system and get away from fossil fuels. The benefits of heating with electric, it complies with this executive order. You would have a lower site EUI, which stands for energy use intensity, reduce site emissions. You don't have a boiler or gas-fired furnace. There's multiple high efficiency electrified heating systems available. And what we've seen is the HVAC system with heat pumps could be even less than what they were with gas-fired systems. And that's largely because a heat pump does dual function. It provides heating and cooling through the same equipment. There are some kinds of electric heating systems right now, and there might be higher operational costs because in general gas costs less than electric to run. However, that is a changing factor as costs of gas start to increase. Electric will likely also increase, but what we're hearing is probably not to the same escalation factor. It does require some additional cost for larger generators because you're using electric for your heating, and the backup heating system could have potentially higher costs. So with that said, next slide. All the different HVAC options, is important that they're apples to apples. So what we wanted to do was at least present the proposed design criteria. And this is largely based upon the Massachusetts Energy Code. And what we would propose for is on a heating condition of 5 degrees of outdoor air, that we would be heating all spaces to 70 degrees and allow a user adjustment of plus minus 2 degrees. And then for the cooling system, we would design to, on an outdoor day of 91 degrees dry bulb and 73 degrees wet bulb, with wet bulb being a factor of humidity, of outdoor humidity levels, that the inside would be 75 degrees dry bulb, plus or minus 2 degrees set point, and the relative humidity within the space would be 55% RH. So that's within what's called within the comfort zone, that condition. Hallways, corridors, entryways, restrooms, they'd be slightly higher. We're not typically providing the same level of air conditioning. Sometimes those are passively conditioned, so they would be slightly, but all that air is still dehumidified. And then the apparatus bay, general storage areas, vestibules, those are typically just heated and ventilated and made to 70 degrees dry bulb. So again, this is what all options would be studied under, and it's really driven by the energy code. Also in the energy code is unoccupied temperature setback has to be provided for all options and all areas that don't have that 24/7 occupancy. So certainly if an area is fully occupied, it's going to be maintained at the occupied temperatures. Next slide. So option 1, this would be an air source to hydronic hot and chilled water heat pump plant. So there would be an outdoor air source chiller / heater that generates hot water and chilled water that would be distributed to your air handling systems and fan coil units or chill beams to maintain the space heating and cooling requirements. Air handling units would largely be used for ventilation purposes, and then your additional heating and cooling that would be needed would be served by terminal hot water, chill water equipment. We've identified the pros and cons, and the pros on these and why we're comfortable with all these options. They will provide a high degree of thermal comfort. With this option, you don't need a separate boiler and chiller plant. You've got an air source heat pump that produces hot water and chill water. And again, the terminal units, they can provide heating or cooling. And it reduces refrigerant piping by using hot water and chill water systems. So a lot of, sometimes often people don't want to run refrigerant piping throughout the building. Refrigerant pipes have changed throughout the years. They're going to be recently, changing again. Everything's pretty much at R410A now. It's going to be changing to R32 soon. So that's a pro of the hot water, chill water systems. These are hydronic, and you're using simpler indoor terminal units. So that could have potentially reduced future maintenance and replacement costs. The cons, it will have a higher first cost than the next option. Option 2 I'll talk about. And the maintenance is still within the occupied areas. You still will have to do filter changes and maintain the condensate drains. And this is very common for the other options as well. One of the things that the code has done is really push to separate ventilation, HVAC from your space heating and cooling loads. So when you have those space heating and cooling loads by fan coils, you will have those maintenance concern regardless of whether it's a hot water, chill water system or a refrigeration based system. Next slide. So option 2 is called an air source VRF, variable refrigerant flow. So you've got outdoor heat pump condensing units that utilize refrigerant to supply your indoor refrigerant based fan coils. So instead of having the hot water and chill water distribute your heating and cooling, you're using a refrigerant. It's pro because of that, you've got lower piping costs because you don't have 4 pipes, hot water supply and return, chill water supply and return. It's typically like a 3 to 2 pipe refrigerant system, so you have less costly piping. Again, the pro, you don't have chiller and heaters. You have an air source heat pump that's generating both your heating and cooling needs, and then your fan coil can do both heating and cooling. You have smaller ductwork because it's just sized for your ventilation needs. The cons, similar to the fan coils, you've got some units within the occupied zone, so you've got to maintain those filters. You've got condensate maintenance, and then you've got slightly more complex controls with this unit, with this system, because these VRF units have their own standalone controls, whereas the fan coil units are really just could be a centralized BMS that's just controlling your fan and hot water, chill water valves. These units have more complex controls. And then you've got your refrigerant maintenance with this system. Next slide. Option 3 would be using a geothermal system, a closed loop geothermal system that could be paired with either option 1 or option 2. We've seen the more common approach to kind of use a geothermal with the option 2, the VRF system, but it could be done with either, and we've done both. the benefits of the geothermal is it has the highest energy efficiency and the lowest energy use intensity. It has a reduced carbon footprint because of that. Another real big benefit is the low outdoor noise. Because you're using the ground, you don't have air source heat pumps that are generating noise. You also have longer equipment life because that's not exposed to the outdoor air conditions. This has the largest utility incentives, and it would be the only option that has a potential federal tax credit, which I'll talk about next. And as I mentioned, you could use it with the water source or a refrigerant VRF system. The real cons is an increased capital investment. Hopefully that could be offset by these incentives. It will require increased site to handle the well field. There will be some higher temperature costs and maintenance costs. Next slide. With fire stations too, we also see it's important to consider some supplemental heating systems. These could be applied to any option. These would be, and depending upon which option, they would look a little bit different. So for the hot water-based system, we would generally provide hot water radiant panels on the office living area spaces. With the VRF electric system, we would tend to provide electric-based radiant panels. These are generally a good idea is that they provide backup heating, supplemental and in cases backup heating. So if the air source heat pump system failed, you've got a backup and you wouldn't be freezing areas of the building. Now, are they absolutely 100% required? No. There's other ways you could allow for that resiliency of your design, but going in as a first option, we would recommend them be considered. And then in the apparatus bay, what we've seen is radiant floor slab heating being used on a number of fire stations. The benefit there is, again, it's a redundant system, but it's also an energy efficient system because when you've got radiant heating systems, you can tend to operate the heating system at a lower temperature. So instead of trying to maintain maybe 65 degrees, 70 degrees, you could probably get away with 60 degrees because the heat is where the occupants are. So it could also be a energy efficient system. The cons for these systems are that they do have additional first costs. And then if they're electric systems, they might have a high impact on the electric. So in that case, we recommend they are used only for backup duty. Next slide.
Don, before you leave this slide, if I could,
Yep.
One of the things we also want is we want to heat the front apron about 25 feet, 20 to 25 feet out. It's very difficult during heavy snowstorms for us to maintain that when we're running calls, and it keeps that front of the apron clean so we don't have to worry about it building up and the trucks coming through and getting big windrows in front. So that was one of the other, we've seen that in several stations, and I assume that would be related to the supplemental system. That's why I wanted to mention it.
It would, and for like the energy modeling, we would not model that because that's not a building energy use. And it's, very difficult to determine when it would be used,
Okay.
and it wouldn't really have an impact. Like I said, it could be added to any of the other options that are selected.
Okay.
So we'll note that certainly and design it as required for the project, but in terms of the life cycle analysis, it probably wouldn't be factored in to the system selection, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Great.
Dominic, can you also add to the list the heated main walkway to the main entrance?
We certainly will note that, and again, that wouldn't be part of the life cycle and energy modeling, but would certainly be described within the HVAC design. Next slide, please. So all these options, as I was mentioning, the code is really pushing for kind of separating the ventilation system from your additional space heating and cooling. And when we're designing ventilation systems, we use what's called DOAS, you might hear, and it's a DOAS. It's a dedicated outdoor air handling system, and that's designed to temper your ventilation. It's a very efficient approach because it's going to incorporate energy recovery. So all that ventilation air is going to either be, depending upon the season, preheated or pre-cooled by this energy recovery. What happens is that return air that we've spent good money to temper gets passed through the energy wheel. That energy media transfers that energy to the incoming outdoor air and then is heated in the heating season, pre-cooled in the summertime. And then from there, we provide any additional heating and cooling. Next slide. So this would be in all options, just how we achieve that heating and cooling would be dependent upon the system selected. Next slide. All options would also, what we're proposing would have a building energy management system, a BMS. So that would control these, control and monitor the HVAC systems. Will allow for zone scheduling, occupied, unoccupied control, night setback control for certain areas that are occupied 24/7. Could be integrated with the lighting systems. And the goal of them is they really provide increased energy savings and could also prompt for preventative maintenance, such as when filters need to be changed, when fans need to be lubricated, will prompt the user. It will also be web accessible. So these, could be managed remotely. Next slide. Potential HVAC incentives. Just a note, these are all kind of subject to change with how the utility companies change their policies, but this is based upon the latest. For option 1 and option 2, there would be between $800 and $1,000 per ton of heating incentive for the project. For the geothermal, that gets increased to $4,500 per ton of heating. And also, because of the passage of the 2022 IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, tax code section 48E was revised to now allow for tax exempt municipalities to get a direct pay option tax credit in the range of 30 to 40% of the geothermal heat pump system cost. So it's a real game changer. So just again, I'm not throwing numbers, which, but just if this was a $1 million HVAC system, that's potentially $300,000 could be a federal tax credit, or $400,000. It's probably closer to $30,000 because that additional 10% relates to domestic product, and you can't claim it all on the total cost because it's the total cost of the HVAC system is not just product, it's product and labor. So you can't get it all, but it's probably somewhere, in the range of, 33% when you factor that in. We've also included, where we're coming with these, this information from, if anyone's interested. Next slide.
I think that's your last slide.
Great. So, we're hoping, we're not looking for, any decisions on the system at this time. What we're looking for is kind of an okay to study these systems. And if there's any different ones that you'd like us to look at, we can, review and comment on that.
Dominic, are any of these systems similar to a chilled beam system?
So the chill beam would be option 1.
Okay. In another facility
On
I
the
worked
previous
in.
slide. So, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a chill beam. You could use a fan coil with this
Okay.
system.
Okay. Another facility that I worked in had a lot of issues with those, especially overcoming the humidity because of the passive movement of the air. Overcoming the humidity, they had a lot of issues with that.
Yeah, so as I list in the pros, you could use different indoor style units. Fan coils, active chill beams. So if there was a, no to not go with chill beams, we could study a fan coil system instead. What we're showing here is that this is a air source heat pump outside that generates hot and chill water, as opposed to option 2, which is an outdoor air source heat pump that uses refrigerant. And the fan coil would be much more similar to what these VRF air handling units are, indoor air fan coils are. So that'd probably be a truer comparison, actually, is to have the air source hydronic heat pump with fan coils.
So, Dom, every fire chief I've spoken to recently who has either built a station or is in the process of building a station or whatever, has had nothing but problems getting the systems to balance properly. And, having issues with because of when the big overhead doors open, the apparatus space get freezing cold, and it takes forever for the heat up. Or some of the dorm rooms are 90 and some of the dorm rooms are 60. Is that the system that we pick, or is that the system design that causes that issue?
Could be both. Could be
Okay.
a combination of both. The other thing too is could be the expectation of the design and the use of operable windows we've seen play into that as well.
Okay. Yeah, and there's also issues with, and you had mentioned how we'll have the time in some places in depth. We were just talking about this the other day. Some places are 24-hour heated or conditioned, and some aren't, and that caused a problem. I forget what department it was. It was causing problems with them because they couldn't control areas that they needed to control.
That could be if you had if you just had one, if you had one unit that was serving both those type of areas, some that were 24/7 and others were, and the unit wasn't on, that certainly would be an issue.
Okay.
So what we would propose is to review that, identify which of the areas are 24/7, which ones are 7 to 5, and then really select different units, probably on the ventilation side, and maybe even group, if we went with the VRF system, group those so that they're on different systems and they could be more accurately controlled for the occupancy.
Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments?
Just one on that aspect of controlling is within the project will be a large training room, public access meeting room, and the use of that is not going to be on a perfect schedule. So somehow a way that can be managed to be turned on, turned off, or overridden or something for that space.
But it's also the emergency operations center, so yeah.
Ron?
Yeah, that one might want to be paired with the lobby and public entry area, so that because we understand when that training there's also a public access component too, right? So those you might want to group on the same air handling unit. Or if cost was an issue, the other thing we've done in the past is have own VAV dampers, so that those do, and then we could go with the control sequences to have a unit upright in a minimum setback condition that's going to be still sufficient to serve those public areas.
Madam Chair.
I think Tom had a question.
So, Dom, are there strategies that exceed the base stretch code requirements for the building shell that we could consider to reduce our overall heating and cooling loads? like triple glaze or increasing the insulation or et cetera? Or have you found any of those strategies that are real cost savers?
Yes, but then there does come to a point of diminishing returns. And then the other thing we've done and worked with HKT on past projects is, while we're doing this energy model to primarily study the HVAC systems, once we've got a selected HVAC system, we got that energy model as a tool. So if there was a question, hey, if we went from triple glaze to something less, or a certain version of triple glaze and went to something less, what's the impact? We can assist with that as well.
So you can factor in the building shell and how it
We do.
performs?
So, yep. So one of our first set of questions to HKT is, can you answer these questions? We ask, what's the glazing percentage? What's the plan for it? What's the R values of the roof, wall, your floor slab? So when we get that model, it's as accurate as possible.
Okay. Great.
And I just want to add to that there is a new energy code that we're all going to be dealing with that is might require some of those things that you just mentioned, like the triple glaze or reduction in the amount of glass or more increased insulation. We are already heavy duty into those worlds anyhow, but there are even more things, and the new energy required is going to take code is going to require a lot of coordination with Dom and his group and the electrical guys to make this all work together on the project. So Amy, you want to comment on that at all? No, I think, yeah. Okay.
John?
Madam Chair, question for Dom. So do you have an approximate idea of how long this analysis might take, given the many project activities that are going on?
This analysis, we typically, like to get it done in the first stage of design, the schematic design front.
Right. Is that 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months? What's your gut tell you for a project this size?
Yeah, typically 4 weeks from receiving the model. That's what we've kind of talked to HKT about.
Okay, all right.
Thanks. Between these different models, I'm a big fan of geothermal, at least as a concept. I'm glad that's in the mix. I know that there's increased upfront costs with that and the complexities with the site. So not every project can use geothermal. With any of these, I'd suggest that you have a discussion with Sean Thompson, who works for our DPW. He's in charge of the building maintenance for all the municipal buildings. Our senior center has a geothermal system. It's about 15 years old, so there may be substantial differences in design, for a building 15 years old, but he may have some experience pro or con there.
So I might be overstepping, but I heard that was the case, and my understanding is it's an open loop geothermal, if I'm not mistaken. So and that tends to have increased maintenance costs and increased sometimes trouble because of that. So what we're proposing would be a closed loop, and I think the industry really has shifted that way because of all the issues with the open loops. And then the closed loops also have less permitting requirements because you're not open to any aquifers. You're a closed piping system and you're running fluid within that piping system. There's much less permitting required as well. But certainly, this presentation should be shared with Sean, certainly for review and comment.
Great. Thank you.
Else? Sienna, anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm just saying, do you all feel comfortable with the systems? Is there anything, Dom said, is there any other add? I guess we could talk to Sean and ask him that if there's something else that he has in mind or he's concerned about. But, I think Dom is good with these three for right now. And
I would probably, based upon Neil's input, geared towards fan coils versus chill beams for option one.
Okay.
Well, I've spoken to Sean and to Scott. We discussed this, and pretty much what Dom's presented is what we've. I apologize for having a call, so it distracted me. It is pretty much what we've talked about, but I do think it's important, Dom, if you reach out, and then you can get, if you want to reach out to me later, I can give you Sean's contact info and just have that conversation.
Okay, certainly can do that.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
One last question.
Yeah.
Have you had problems with humidity levels in these tighter buildings? And that the makeup air is not sufficient to control the humidity?
I'm not gonna say we've never had humidity problems, but once the systems are up and running, you tend to have those problems initially maybe. And where they get, typically like move-in day, or the extended move-in day, when you have in a conditioned building, you have doors and open for extended period of time. And oftentimes these buildings get turned over, maybe during the cooling season. It takes a little while to wring out that moisture. So that's something to be concerned about and kind of keep. But when properly, once we're past that, we really haven't had those humidity issues. Once it's, up and running and being operated properly. You nailed the key, is properly size the ventilation system. So that you're dehumidifying that incoming outdoor air. And that's really the goal of the DOAS, is to size it just for the ventilation air needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Else? Diana?
You're muted, Diana.
Thanks. Dom, when you were discussing the radiant slab, it seemed as if that might be an optional thing, but I think I would highly encourage us to consider making that the basis of design for all of, like, regardless of the other systems. I think that we need that in apparatus space and beyond, as you all as the chief described.
Yeah, that could certainly be included. Why I say it's a supplemental system is, and it probably won't, when you're running it, it's really not. It's kind of your baseline, and will allow us to reduce, depending upon the system, the fan coils, whether they're refrigerant based or hot water based in that apparatus bay. But why I know some people who have just designed the radiant heating and called it a day and not have those other systems, and they have regretted it and had to add them back. Because when you think of how a fire station works, you're on call, could be a cold day, 0 degrees, you've got the apparatus bay doors open. With radiant heating systems aren't quick acting. They take a while. So it's great to have them both. The radiant heating system and then an overhead system that's going to be able to deal with that quick, heat loss to heat that back up. With the radiant system, you're going to be waiting, many hours to get back to temperature if you had the doors open for an extended period of time on a cold day. So that, yeah, we certainly, and that's what I would recommend too. We're at the schematic design phase. This is an important stage to set the budget. So I think those type of systems should be included, and then potentially down the line, talk about value engineering, and I'm not saying that they should be, but, I'd say put it in at the schematic design level. I would agree, Diana.
So,
Thanks.
Diana, were you suggesting that the radiant be considered for other portions of the building, not just the apparatus bays?
I think it could be, but I think it absolutely needs to be in the apparatus space.
Okay.
I think that the rest of it is more of a cost thing. I think what I was fundamentally trying to say is, let's not consider the radiant slab in the apparatus space as a value engineering item from the get-go. It should not be on that list.
As a fire chief, I can tell you I've spent many hours on apparatus bays, and they are freezing cold. I don't care how you heat them, but I've also been in ones that are radiant. I shouldn't say that, but as long as they're heated above, But I've been in ones with radiant floor and you're out there for hours, either working on trucks or whatever, much more comfortable for those that are out there.
All right. All right, I guess that concludes that part of the presentation, unless anybody has anything to add.
Great. Thanks, Dom. You can hang out or go home.
It's okay. I will go home, but I will certainly follow up with Sean and thank you all.
Thanks,
Have a
Don.
great-
Just
Thanks.
one quick thing, Don, if there's a way that this presentation and anything else that we see for the first time during a meeting could be later emailed out to the committee, I think that would be helpful for our reference.
Mitch, I can do that tomorrow. Mark can do that tomorrow. We have that
Fantastic.
copy. Yep. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Night,
you.
Dom.
Okay. Presentation of draft floor plan plans.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. And going to go on. Let's see. Can you see it?
We still have the
Yep,
shift.
I'm shifting it ahead, but it
Yep.
doesn't want to move. There it goes. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is concept development, and I really want to emphasize this is the first time we put anything in front of anybody. It's really, really early on development, but we do want to show it. So I'm going to show you some plans and do some descriptions. And then Mark is going to jump in and he's going to show we are studying both this in plan and in massing right now so that we can understand how the forms are working together. So, so this is we have two options. And this is option 1 and level 1. And the words on the left are highlights. It has a 6-bay apparatus area. It has all the operations. I'm going to get a little laser pointer here, which are all these spaces here. And then the operations support spaces are focused on firefighter safety and training opportunities. And we're talking about all the kind of spaces in here. There are, we call them saddlebag spaces on this side, less dependent on safety, more spaces that are required, but not so much on the firefighter safety. And then we have our administrative areas located to the west of the operations area. Per the town directive, all entries must face West Main Street or the main entry fleece. And we're trying to, in this scheme, we're showing that closer to the street. We have a big apron here in front of the building so the trucks can exit the building and sit on the apron, not hanging over the street lines. And then there's this is the training room, EOC community use space located also at the entry. What Dom was talking about mechanical systems. So, you know, he was talking about this area that, you know, encompasses this piece right here for perhaps a separate mechanical space. And then, of course, in our designs, everything, we want to have the most opportunity for natural daylight as possible in every space. I'm going to go to the second floor and then we're going to blow up a little bit of the spaces and we can go back and look at anything and you can ask questions anytime you want. So I'm going to show you what the second floor looks like of that. The apparatus, of course, has nothing above it. It is a space that is about 22.5 to 23 feet above the ground floor to the underside of the deck. And there's a clear space above the trucks and plus all the mechanical structural spaces above that. The firefighters' living quarters are located on the south and west portions of the site, looking at into the trees or the hillside more. There's a focus on making sure there's access when they're in any of these spaces to getting to being able to respond to the alarms. And there is a fire pool located here, for instance, and locations of the stairs. And again, all living spaces have opportunities for natural light. So that is the first kind of scheme. I'm going to show you what I meant by firefighter safety opportunities. So we've talked about these hot to cold zones. There's a hot zone, the transition zone, and the cold zone. When you're in the apparatus space after you've responded in a contaminated equipment or personnel, their gear. They would come into a singular entry point in the decontamination, and there would be certain equipment and things that are located there. From there, they could move into a laundry space. And from there, they would go into an area that had the showers so that they can get rid of their gear, get rid of their clothes, and clean themselves. And they would be restricted to this zone right here. And then they could exit out into the administration areas of the fire department, living quarters or whatever. So that is a zone that is what is considered a transition zone. Not every call has the same requirements. There's obviously like from the gear storage, when they come in during the day and they're assigned to a truck, they come in and get their gear, place it by the trucks. So there's more than one door into a space like this, but this is how this layout works conceptually. So we're very focused on that. It's really important, to control the movement of contaminants as they move from the apparatus into the rest of the building. I also want to point out that already we are taking that scheme and looking at how to improve it. So there are opportunities to get stair locations that are closer to the fire pole. Not every fireman wants to use a fire pole. And we've been told, we don't know this is true, that the older the firemen get, the less they want to use the fire poles, but we don't know that's true. So we're already looking at that so that when you come down the stair, you're having a direct shot into the apparatus space. So we're already looking at that. And that is the process of design, that you begin the work, you lay stuff out, and then you see how it works. What we would be proposing, especially with this change schedule, we would be meeting with the chief, the deputy, the captain, Brohart, and looking at these plans, laying those plans in front of them and drawing up with them to get their feedback on how these relationships works. Because it's all about getting the firefighters safely into the building and in the quick as they can to be able to respond to a fire. The fire department has already started looking at the layout of the vehicles and have commented on how they want those spaces to be laid out. Right now, they have openings at the back and the front of the building. There may be reasons if they want some of these spaces closer that, potentially you could close off one or two of those bays. We've done that. But right now the plan is to have movement out the front and the back so that they can face vehicles facing the front or facing the rear. They have all their frontline major vehicles located right here. Does anybody have any quick comments or questions about layout, what they're seeing? I know that was pretty quick, but I actually can blow this up a little bit so you can actually see this a little bit more. Actually, I'm gonna go back to the other plan, which is this plan, and show it.
John?
So you can see
Yes,
that a little bit more.
Janet, what's
Yes.
the expected setback from the street?
So
I'm
we
looking at the building, and I'm looking at the right side. Certainly, it protrudes more to the street than you've got an apron for the apparatus bays.
right.
What's the
So
setback
we're
expected?
looking, and Mark, you can jump in what that number is right now. We've been looking at about 50 feet. Is that pretty close to what we were?
So the
working with?
apron itself is about 65 feet from the street.
65 now. Okay.
Yep. And then and this option, the face of the building is about I'd say 25 feet from the property line. So my understanding is that I think we have a 15-foot setback typically. We just tried to pull the front of the building up a little bit further to be more in line with the adjacent property on the west side. I think that's a part of the design consideration to bring the buildings up more towards the street, at least the front door towards the street. So that's what we're attempting to do here with this plan.
And we may be able to move it a little bit more forward. We'd want to go over that with the chief about what they'd like to see for the apron. And
your driveway is coming around the back, so it's roll in, roll out.
Yes, there are movements all around, and Mark's going to show you some of the massing, which shows some of the grades, which is important for you to see. So we'll show that
John, the intent is not to use the bays as drive-through bays, but to
Yeah.
actually have trucks in the back facing out back, trucks in the front.
Facing out,
front.
facing out.
Okay.
The
Right,
ability
right,
to get trucks in and out that way.
All right.
Right.
I'm thinking in terms of response time, certainly your more urgent equipment would be street facing.
Right, that's all
Right,
the stuff in the front, correct.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, that's the layout we currently have. And of course, we'll be talking more to the chief and about, if he's comfortable with all this, but that is the plan right now, is to go out the back or out the front.
So Janet, the setbacks in downtown business, it's minimum of 6 feet, maximum of 20. So
Mhm.
if the right side of the building is beyond 20 feet, you will need a special permit,
Okay.
just to let you know.
Okay, Mark, and we had it at 25.
That's good to know. I'll bring it up a little bit further for this option.
But we don't want to compromise the functioning of the fire station because of a setback requirement.
Right.
Well,
Never.
yes, that's true.
Yeah. We'll
But
work
we
with
do
all
it.
that.
We do want to study what that will do to the plan. I mean, if we're
Yes.
trying to stay within zoning guidelines.
Great.
The next auction has a very different plan, so that'll be an interesting one to work with, but we'll have to wait to see that. So anyone else have a question about something? Okay. I'm gonna
One question
yes.
for the chief.
Hey, John.
The dimensions of the apparatus bay and considering that equipment's gotten bigger and bulkier over the years, you expect that this will give you some future-proof capabilities as you get bulkier engines or eventually replace the tower ladder?
Yeah, some of the things that are currently in the apparatus bay are some of the trailers that we have that are purchased. They're older. They're going to be approaching end of life eventually, and we may not, replace those with the same type of vehicle, which would give us more.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Wait,
I
we
figured you
have
Consider
sorry.
that, but I just thought I'd ask the question.
No, that's a fair question.
Yep. Good.
Thank you.
There, we are showing, just so you know, the folding doors on this, fast acting folding doors, which are great. They move quickly, they function well. They just are a little deeper into the space than an overhead door is. So that's what these little lines represent, just so everybody understands that. And we have to make those work as well on the structure. So okay. I'm going to let Mark share. I'm going to stop sharing, let Mark share for a little bit, and so that he can show you what this may. Now, I caution you, this is just conceptual. We're working in plan and massing at the same time. So, Mark, take it away.
Just so you all know, I told Janet today she needed to treat this like this was a fire drill. So when we're doing fire training, we say on the radio, "This is the drill. This is the drill," and then we do it. We say, "This is the drill." Said you need to do the same thing with this is conceptual, this is conceptual, here it is, this is conceptual. So very important.
It is important. We
Thank
have it
you.
written everywhere. So
Okay.
yeah.
So this is the first option, option 1 building. We were exploring pitched roofs, mirroring like a two equal sized pitched roofs with a the front entry a little pushed out a bit further, and a hose tower, training tower in the middle, balancing the two forms. This is a view from the Dunkin' Donuts across the street on West Main Street. I'm going to go to another view. This is heading towards downtown along Route 20 West Main Street, looking back at the training area and the dorms.
You can see
Yep.
the hillside. I want
Yeah,
Mark,
the hill it extends well above the building. I mean, you can tell that there's a lot more trees back there. We don't see the trees. You can see it in the aerial terrain, but yeah, you would see a lot more trees behind. This is looking west along West Main Street. You can tell kind of the pushing this out hugs the apparatus bay. And then I'm going to go with the second back to this view. The second option we're looking at is flat roofs over the apparatus bay with monitors. These have north-facing windows, and the south side is sloped away for possibility of putting solar panels on top. So it's a little bit, in terms of structure, I think this, Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, this is probably a little bit more affordable.
This is definitely more affordable
than doing a pitched roof over the top of the apparatus bay. But we would still, and maintain, some character in the admin staff area to the side.
And Mark,
Yep.
that pitch is at 45 feet, which is the zoning height right now.
Yeah, the zoning height, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, if others who know, my understanding is 45 feet in downtown business district, or is that
I believe
correct?
that's correct. Tom, does that sound right?
We could check.
Okay, well, yeah,
We'll
so
check.
yeah, so we will double check. So we these pitches, at least for this option, this maxes out below 45 feet. If we were to pitch the other way, the long way, if you turn around this way, pitch the other way, maintaining a typical like for example, a 6 to 12 pitch on the far end, we would be at 50 feet. 8 to 12, you'd be at 60 feet because it's 100-foot long, and 12 to 12 would be like overall height of 75 feet. So trying to keep the pitches, in smaller areas to reduce the overall height is the goal. I'll go back to option 1B. This is looking from heading to downtown. This is a very similar view to last time. And then from heading west on West Main, the flat roof. Janet, do you want me to go over
Why don't
hill?
you just go over the bird's eye on the same one and stick with lines so you can see what we're looking
you
at
can
for grades.
tell, yeah, you can see that the hill slopes pretty aggressively. Citing the building, since this is this corner over here is the flattest part of the site, we felt that I think that this is the most appropriate location for the building. It allows us to keep the amount of cut in the hill to a minimum. Parking would be off to the side. I'm getting my
That's west.
directions mixed because this is north. This is the west side of the site.
Yep. West.
But we, for the apparatus space, if we're pulling out, we need an additional distance between the back of the building and the hill, which would require either retaining wall or some aggressive cutting into the hill. At this backboard, we're like up pretty high. You can see back here already. We're encroaching on the second level of the building, just with the natural hill grade. I mean, these lines represent the actual grade from the survey on the site.
Mark, a question.
Yes.
In this rendering, is the expectation that egress from the rear of the building goes towards the west side, to the right side of the diagram here?
Yes, so the egress would come out directly at the back, and you could either go this way out the site to the east or to the west.
Or you could, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
We have a pretty significant amount of parking to be accommodated
Right.
on the site. So, we're going to have to wrap parking in significant areas. I think the study had 20 less parking spaces than we've been asked. And I think Mitch, you even asked for more if we could get them on. So I don't know how many we're going to get in now, but it does, we're going to have to deal with that grade to get the fire trucks out the back. So, we're going to make it work for multiple things, not to mention all the office space at the back of the first floor. So, yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
Janet,
I have a question.
Yep, sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Am I correct in saying that option 2 is going to get more consistent light into the apparatus space? Like, it seems like there's a lot more natural light that will come in with that option.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. We just did a building with some of those light, that kind of light on the apparatus space is beautiful light inside, honestly, they don't have to have their lights on almost, all day. It's so bright in there, but it is an opportunity to do it. So, I mean, the idea of this one is to marry the two pieces and through architecture, materiality and things like that, and respect any of those volumes with the big pitches is volume that's not going to be used. I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing to put up there. So when you were talking about radiant, Diana, I was thinking, oh yeah, because you don't want to heat all that air. I mean, you're that's what you're doing. So we've done quite a few pitch roofs and fire stations for good reason. And what we've used for them primarily is training, rappelling training, things like that out of those high gables. But there's not
Mhm.
a whole lot of program space because you just can't build over to the fire trucks easily. You're already up, that 23 feet or something. So there's not much you can put up there. So
As
Okay.
I mean, as design moves along, it'd be great to see the sort of interior
Yeah,
views of
I mean,
those
these are
spaces
just
between the two options.
yeah, just getting started on we're
Yeah.
cognizant of the the concern of the community and the volumes and the forms, and trying to make
Yep.
sure that when we're putting the plans together, we're not ignoring those two things coming together. So
Yeah,
all
it's a
right.
challenge. So one more
Yeah.
question. When
Yeah.
when you do have a skylight configuration like that, how does that work with the prime event systems? Do they just kind of pass beneath them and you just
Pass, but potentially beneath it, I'll get you some pictures of one that we put in, Diana,
That would
to
be
let you
great.
see
Yeah.
it. Yeah, because it depends on how you lay out what you're trying to do. This is a south-north air orientation, which is great, for getting light. You could say, let's put the glazing on the north side to get that kind of light, or the south gets a stronger light at different times. But we can make sure it may be, you may be needing less than that. You may not need all that. You might need a lot smaller ones to get the kind of light you inside. So we'll study that, and we'll locate where the plum event, which runs usually primarily between the tracks, not over top them so much. So we'll work that out. So yeah. Okay. All right. Mark, is that all for one?
That is all for one.
Okay,
I'll
so
stop
if you
sharing.
would stop
Yep.
sharing, and I will share again. Okay, so all right, so that was one. And what we were just talking about was where those monitors could be, over top these vehicles to get light over the spaces. So, and let me escape out of this because it won't let me advance. Oh, there I go. Okay. And so we talked about that. Did anybody have any question about this firefighter support spaces at all? I mean, does everybody understand the concept of that? Just in case, I'll bring that up, but it's really very important. And I think the firefighters will want to make sure we get that as correct as we can possibly get it. This is the second option. It's very similar. In fact, almost exactly the same here. The difference is in this one is we were looking to push this part of the building further into sight and make this piece of the building a sort of a one-story attachment. You might want more height in that training room than you do in the regular office space on the left side of it, over here. And we were looking at different ways, to mask the building and how that might work. So we were looking at that, but it has it is right further to the side. So if we have to bring it up to 25 feet, that's obviously not going to work. So we definitely have to go for the variance for this scheme, but it definitely has its merits. That's one of the big things. They all have that real emphasis on getting natural light into all the office spaces, and making sure that the way the public uses the space is appropriate as well, how they're met and greeted, how you get out of these spaces. And the second floor for that is a little different. Of course, the spaces are further back, and again, you can see these loop corridors that allow all these dorm rooms to quickly get to a stair or get to the the training pool to, I mean, the pool to get out and down into the apparatus floor. So that's the one-story space there. I think, Mark, I'll let you, so if you don't have any initial questions, I think it's really, this one is more about form and what the building might look like. So I'm going to stop sharing and let Mark do the same routine with what this is starting to mass. And we're not quite as far with, we're working on the massing. So again, concept development, chief. So, yeah.
So this one's it's a bit of a mix between option 1A and option 1B. So we have the form here, a form here, a pitch roof, a flat roof in the middle, where we could explore some monitors. I hadn't gotten far enough to see what this would look like with just all flat roofs, but this is hot off the press, so to speak. So similar view from Dunkin' Donuts. Go to this view heading this heading east towards downtown. You can see, I mean, I think this would be hidden behind, there's some retail buildings in the foreground to the right here. This might be hidden a little bit behind it as you're approaching this direction. And I'm not sure if this is a bad thing or not. It could be a good thing. But there's more visibility. I think from the apparatus bay as the engines are leaving the apron, having more visibility onto the street may or may not be beneficial. I'm not sure.
Always beneficial.
Yeah. So that's the consideration behind this, pulling the entry back a little bit so that there's a little bit more. You can see a little bit more leaving the station. This is looking west, and look at the bird's eye view. Very similar dorm rooms back here. This is the meeting room pushed off to the side here as a higher space. It's very early. A little bit of an entry, so push out a little bit so you can tell where the entry into the public entry into the fire station is.
Mark, with all those angles and the joints coming together, do you find that that's greater potential for leaks in those areas if you?
Yes.
There's more things. The more hips, valleys is more opportunities to, yeah. It is more, we have to be very careful about how it's detailed and how it's built.
Okay. I see you have a hayloft for the horses. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, there's problems at all buildings, it's, you can design every rooftop roof and you detail it well, and then someone builds it. And so therein lies the difference. And if you get a really good builder, all buildings, I always say that all buildings need to be maintained. You don't build them and then, walk away from them for 20, 30 years. They need to be cared for to work well. So, that's a big thing. We put pitch roofs and flat roof buildings on, all kinds of buildings. We even have, Mark, he even has, I don't know if you have that little images of all the little sketches you've been working on.
Oh, yeah, sure. I've been let's see if I can.
It's not the only ones. We just kind of picked through and said, let's show the all pitch, the combinations.
I mean, these are several different things. I mean, we're studying, where to put, if we're putting living quarters up above the apparatus bay, which I think we abandoned pretty early.
Early on.
Yeah, this is really basic forms back here. Started exploring, all flat roof, what the plans were showing us in terms of the form, and that's just where we're at right now. There's still a lot of work to be done. This is going to keep going.
Right, everything from the doors, and you put the 4-fold doors. You can then simulate an arch door. They look beautiful that way with the red doors and a lintel above. But I mean, you can't see that in this. That's way down the road.
Yeah, this is just massing. These are just massing studies, John, did you have a question? I thought I.
Yes, Janet, is the expectation with these two concepts that the square footage,
I'm sorry,
or would it be-
I lost hearing you. Could you say that again?
is the expectation that the square footage of both of these two options would be comparable or different?
Yes. Oh,
It-
they would
it-
be comparable. Yeah.
Yeah, they are comparable. I think I'm about 1,000 square feet off between the two.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah.
a little bit less, maybe 800 square feet. They're very
Okay.
close.
Yeah, we
Right.
found that when we pitched the roof and we had to kind of split the building a little bit to get some of that pitching to work, that the building grew a little bit. So we've been, Mark and I've been talking a lot about that, you know, the smaller bay, the one with other the flat or the what other piece, that's the minimum it has to be. So in order to get those two different pitches to come into each other, one of them got a little bigger, so the square footage has increased a little bit. So we're really trying to watch that creep, yeah, that little scope creep, and tighten it up as we go. Part of that will happen when we meet with the chief and the deputy and the captain and all the folks, and we can look at these spaces and dig into them a little bit more, make sure that they're not overly large, so that we can stay within our, you know, projected square footage. But you know, that's part of the process of design. And so what are people thinking about the two options? What are they feeling? I can put them back up. You know, we can talk about the people like any of the directions we're going, nothing. You know, what are people thinking? So
I have a question that applies really to both. I wanted to see both. Is there a specific rationale behind putting the two-story portion of the building to the west for the topography of the site, or anything else? Was just where they landed?
no, I think it's a topography of the site. We, you know, we'll confirm it with our traffic people when they're, you know, working on the traffic study. But that part of the site is just naturally flat right now. I think it's been developed over time to be flat, and it looks logical to us. We've been talking about that. Should we flip the building? You know, should we do? And right now, we think it's in the right spot. So that's our initial thought. And we'll certainly talk to people about it, and our engineers. We had a project once where we were sure that the apparatus was going to be on the left side and the, you know, whatever. And by the time we were finished with the traffic study and the soil probes and the hill analysis, it had been flipped for good reason. And so, you know, we listen to our engineers as soon as we get, you know, some concept that we feel is close. I'll be talking to the civil, because we'll want to get the geotechnical started as soon as we lay out the building. So we get an approximate location, then we're going to get that study going, and that'll do some informing. I believe the traffic is supposedly ongoing right now. I don't know where they are. I forgot to call them today. I apologize. So that may yield some things, because if it shows that we need preemption, lights, who knows what's going to happen. So we'll want to do that. But I think we're in the right spot right now.
The reason I ask, and I keep bringing it up, the parking, it is so secondary or tertiary relative to function of the building. Our town common is 2 lots over to the east from this. I would love to provide some parking for the town common. That's a little bit easier if the parking lot is on the east
side. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I, you know, as I said, the primary purpose of this is to build a great fire station.
Right. Okay. We'll make note of that, because you know, we do have a line of parking on the left side of the building on the east side, and a double right now on the right side.
Oh, okay.
But that is the public parking, not on the left. The left would be devoted for the fire department.
Gotcha.
So we'd be rethinking that, and we can maybe move the building. We don't know yet. But we get the point of the parking closer on east if we can. Okay, we'll see what happens. Yeah, it looks like a big site, but once you put a scale of a building like this on it, and you start, you know, getting drive lanes and parking and building, you know, it does eat up the site pretty quickly. So.
What else?
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I think and I'm not looking for answers, I'm just throwing it on the table, but what is the committee's focus and the community's focus or expectations on maximizing solar energy on the building? with the fact that I think it's a benefit that the rear of the building faces south, which is the solar side. So I just think people might start asking that, and if they are, and if that's something that the committee wants to maximize, then that, that'll take part in the design of the building as well.
Are you talking about PV arrays? Is that what when you're saying solar?
Yeah, PV. I wanted to say, so I was going to say PV, but I guess with the company that I'm in, I guess PV. For the audience at home, I use solar.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, photovoltaic.
Yeah, photovoltaic, panels. The flat roof buildings work quite well with PV. The pitch roof buildings can be aligned to work. They can be, they can sit on angles. There's a lot more that you can done. We put a lot of PV arrays on buildings, right? We put down a lot of them, especially ones that have gone net zero, and we've relied on geothermal, and the PV has been a big part of that. So I'd love to hear from the committee what they're thinking for that one.
I think PV is a great idea if you can make it work.
The Faith School that recently was built in Westboro has a combination of natural lighting with the monitors facing north, and the south side are PV system. And they also have geothermal. So if you want to see a building of.
And where was that? Which one was that, Tom?
It's called the Faith School on Eli Whitney Street in Westboro.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was $554 a square foot 3 years ago. So,
wow. That sounds like a long time ago.
Yeah. So,
we just did a fire station that has monitors, it has geothermal, it has PV, it has green roofs, a bit of a variety. It doesn't have enough PV to run the whole building. The site isn't large enough, but I'm also doing a renovation of a building that has geothermal and about 120 little solar panels on a roof that's only a 5,000 square foot footprint. It's in like a canopy. So we're doing them as often as we can when a town or a city or a community expects it and asks for it. So
Janet, don't forget, we're gonna have to cite a generator on this site as well.
I
just wanted to make sure that I voiced that. I didn't see, because we can't have no power. That's not a good thing in a fire station.
Yeah, Dawn mentioned the generators are somewhat bigger with the electric systems, but they're the size of a school bus to begin with. So, I don't know how much bigger they're going to be, but and so we'll have to talk to them and what the source of those are. So,
okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, regarding the building massing, I appreciate your exploration of the traditional forms, but these current models seem a little too busy, and I would like to see it simplified and stronger forms.
Okay.
It could be a mixture of gable or flat roof, but they're getting a little fussy, especially on the west side where you have double shed dormers and gables and towers. And
yep,
that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, we're just starting. Starting. Yep. So.
Okay.
So does anybody have any thoughts on the plans, pulling pieces out, getting the straighter front, popping that entry forward? Any comments on that one?
If you have thoughts.
Well, one of the things we want on the apparatus, so line of sight is critical. When we're pulling out of that station, you're going to need a preemption system there, I think, no matter what.
Yeah.
I think that's a given. Well, when we're pulling out of that station, line of sight is critical for safety. One of the other things we want to make sure is that apron is large enough that we can pull trucks in without having to pull out into the traffic to back into the bays. You understand what I'm saying? Because a lot of these stations you'll go by and they loop up onto the apron, but then have to pull out in the middle of the traffic and then back up. We don't want that to happen. So it's really critical for us that it's sited in such a way that we can swing up there with our trucks and then swing around and back in.
Yeah, I think that's why we have the 61-foot bay right now. We'll do some turning. We'll get the engineers to do some turning radiuses for those swings, so we can model them.
To keep the firefighter parking separate from the public parking, and the reason why is we still do run callback, right? So we have firefighters coming back in off duty for a building fire. I don't want them to have to be competing for spots or looking for things that the public is using the other side of the room for, so other side of the lot for. So we just need to
Okay.
be careful with that.
Yeah, and I don't know where we stand with parking yet, but if we may have more parking in the back that'll be
Oh, yeah.
dedicated to the fire department, so we'll have to figure that one out too. So that's you know, we got to get some plan before we can start carving up the site. So
I agree.
anybody else about the two buildings, the two general diagrams so far? Anything else? Concerns?
Quiet.
Okay.
I think they look great and you should advance both of them and keep exploring all of the different roof forms.
Okay. Yep. Okay. All right, good. All right.
For the meeting schedule discussion.
Pardon me?
That takes us to the meeting schedule discussion, unless you have anything
Oh,
else.
no, I don't have anything. I was just going to say,
Let's
we
hear-
were going to just say next steps is about schedule. So, yeah.
John has something.
Okay.
Madam
so-
Chair, a question for Janet. The exercise you did with the public last week with those 6 various sets of questions, you'll produce some sort of output from that?
Oh, yes,
Activity,
absolutely.
or something like that, I presume?
Oh, yeah. We just have been focused on trying to get this meeting
Understand.
done,
Okay,
up and
yep.
running. And, but we'll record, as I said tonight, we'll record every single comment and we'll have a number, percentages of how many answer 1, 2, 3, or 4, sort of
Thank you.
things. So yeah, we will do that.
Okay,
You gotta jump in with the schedule?
yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what we agreed to at the last meeting was this meeting. We also agreed to the a presentation on 11/6 at the select board meeting. Now, I just want to clarify who is going to be there, the extent of the presentation, et cetera. Mitch, what are you looking for?
I think a general refresh as to how we got here and where we are. So
What the members
given
of the
that the
board?
select board is mostly a new board relative to 4 or 5 years ago, the last time that this was discussed townwide. I think a brief discussion as to what's the justification for a fire station. I think this is also beneficial to the public. I think it would be helpful to to show even just one of the layouts thus far, because they're still very early. If you want to show both, that's fine. And it doesn't even have to be the 3D model of just, this is kind of where we are very, very early on. Provide the opportunity for the board to provide some feedback. I think it's also important that the board meet the key people involved in this. So I think it's
That leads me to the next question, Mitch.
Yeah.
Is that, do we need the whole board there, or excuse me, this committee, or do we need just reps from HKT, reps ROPM from Colliers, myself, maybe the chair, the deputy? I don't know who you.
Yeah, I think it's good. It probably I would leave it optional for any committee member if anybody wanted to join in. I don't have any problem at that meeting bringing folks in, but I don't think this committee will not be making any decisions or doing any real deliberations.
So what we'll do is when I'll have the link sent out to everybody on this committee who we need there. Todd, we'll need someone from Colliers. We'll need Janet, either you and Amy or Mark, or however you guys want to do that. I'll be there. If the chair can be there, that would be great. And Scott can be there, and we can give the history, how we got here. And Mitch, you could give the darn history because you sat in.
I was there. Yeah.
So, right. So
Wow.
we'll kind of discuss that, and then we can have HKT and Colliers do a little presentation. If that works.
Yeah. And the schedule, going through what we're talking about now for town meeting and ballot and eventually construction and completion, as to what that looks like at this stage is also important. People will ask, what's this going to cost? And we're not ready yet, but anticipate that question or proactively say that it's too early to answer that question.
So then the next meeting that we have for this team is 2 days later on 11/8. And that would be a Zoom meeting. Is Todd and Janet, Amy Leon said she left. What's the agenda on that next meeting? On the 8th.
So on the 8th, we had, really, we're going to just keep working on the plans and the elevations. What we'd like to do is get out to meet with you guys as soon as possible to start looking at those plans in more detail. And so that our next meeting would show, some preference perhaps at that point, or, some, and certainly development of that, maybe it's still pretty much probably still 2 plans and more development of the elevations. Now, the reason I'm a little bit hesitant on this, Chief, right now is only because with this extension, we're trying to rejigger the schedule so we have a little bit more time to design work.
Yep.
We have all these meetings, and there's little time to prepare and actually do physical work.
Do we
So
need the 8th?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe we move it to the 15th.
So the 15th was our community input meeting. We can move.
Well, yeah. So do you mind if we talk about this and get back to everybody so that we have an opportunity to because we want to put all those design review, community input sessions and all that into a bigger schedule.
Okay.
Do we lose Todd still here? Oh, there's Todd. You just moved on my screen up into a new location. And kind of get a new schedule and then put it out to the committee. Is that okay with folks? I mean, we can do it and make the schedule. That's what we've committed to, but the little bit more time we have, the better, the better we have get to do work. So I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think Neil, did you have something to say? I thought I saw your hand earlier.
Earlier, just when you were talking about the presentation with the select board, coming from the outside and walking into not seeing the original design and then what that created. I think we steer away from any exterior images and just focus on a floor plan idea to get a concept, just so that doesn't run again. Because again, we're very, very early in what it will actually look like.
I think if you show any modeling, that could very well happen again. Yep, I agree with you.
Okay, I could see the advantage of that. Then maybe make a statement that you're a different design firm than who did the original feasibility, and the designs that you're looking at are not at all based on what was just what was shown in 2019.
So if we don't do the meeting on the 8th, we change the 15th to our regular committee meeting. And then at that meeting or sometime between now and then, we can figure out the next date for the next community input, because I do get questions. I've gotten several questions from people. The press has reached out to me. When's the next community input meeting? I just want to be able to give them good data.
Right. Yeah, I think we'll take a couple of stabs at it and get a couple ideas and talk to Todd, and he'll give his input. We have a lot more meetings potentially based on our conversation today to throw into this meeting that we didn't and no one when we discussed it early, we didn't anticipate. So we want to sort of get an overall schedule, but obviously a little bit more time to develop the plans and do more massing elevations more elevations, massing and elevation work, which, we'll put in windows and things like that would benefit your decision process. You'll get more information to see. So,
so is everybody okay with, we'll do 11/6 for the select board meeting. Our next committee meeting will be 11/15, and then from that point, we'll schedule forward. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, at the 15th, that'd be Zoom or
Good.
in person.
15th will be, now, we've been doing Zoom. I love meeting in person. I much prefer in person, but that's not my call.
Well, I prefer in person, but how does everyone else feel?
It may be easier for us to see the plans up on the big screen if we were, for instance, at the library. I mean, I think, and because, Janet has to zoom in kind of to show us things. And if we can,
yeah.
I mean, I like the virtual meetings, but I think
Well, I'm more than happy. I'll reach out to Jen tomorrow if that works for everybody, if an in-person meeting on the 15th works.
I probably will not make the 15th because cross our fingers, we'll be interviewing candidates for town
Oh, right, I
administrator that night.
remember that. I know we
But
did.
that's, I'm just one person, so go ahead with that. And the only request I'd make for any in-person meeting, not just for me, but for the public, is make sure cable is there to record it.
Yeah, that's a given. So what we do is, you can see Lorraine's here with us. Lorraine's doing all the minutes. She is also doing our agendas, and she makes sure when she sends it out, it goes to cable, it goes to everybody who needs to go.
Fantastic.
Janet, between now and the 15th, you'll contact me and we'll set up a meeting with the deputy and the captain. And we can
Oh, yeah, I want that to be next week.
just reach out to us and let us know.
Me personally, I'm going to be gone for a couple of days. I'm going to a family wedding in DC, but Mark and Amy will be working, and we'll discuss. And but I want to get out there as soon as possible because we want Mark's, our time to be focused on making sure we got the plans right. If it doesn't work for operations, we got it wrong. We shouldn't bother. And then then we'll once we have a plan that we're kind of liking, whether it's one of these two or it'll look probably very different than both of them. We'll have pieces of both, positive pieces of both, and then we'll go from there. So, okay,
Excellent.
that's great.
So we'll
Okay.
plan on the 15th.
All righty, great.
And the chief will get the
I'll take care of it.
place to
I'll
us.
coordinate it.
Okay.
Okay.
So
All
that's
right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate all
you.
your comments.
you.
They were very helpful. Okay.
have business that legally can come before the committee. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Madam
So
Chair, I
moved.
make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Yeah, good.
Dan seconded. Dan,
Aye.
Chief,
Yeah,
I,
John.
John,
Aye.
Diana,
Bye.
Mitch,
Aye.
and Tom.
No, I want to keep going.
Okay, I'll make you in charge and I'll leave and you can keep going.
I agree.
Okay. the
Thanks,
motion's
guys.
made and
Thank you.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.